Willie D Live.
What's up, family? A man is enjoying 15 minutes of viral fame after comparing prison to Disneyland. Dude said that he was running through all y'all baby daddies, your brothers, your cousins. The most powerful dudes in prison was serving him, or he was serving them. Family, usually I wouldn't waste your time with this type of ignorance. I wouldn't waste my own time with this type of ignorance. But this is something that needs to be said because there are too many young people out there who are impressionable. And when they hear these so-called guys who are supposed to be real or street or whatever, go to prison and come back out and tell these fantasy island stories, they give it credence. They really believe it. And then they end up in there themselves. And they get the shock of their life because ain't nothing cool about prison. You're taken away from your family. If you got kids, you're taken away from your kids. You're put in a cage like an animal. You're told when to come and go, what to do. You don't move until they tell you to move. Your life, depending on what level of security the prison has, could be in danger at all times. The food is trash. The facilities are nasty. And you have to sit there month after month, year after year, watching television, looking at pictures that family perhaps have sent you, looking at magazines, watching the world go by. Who the hell want to live like that? That's not designed for a civilized human being. Hell, animals shouldn't even be subjected to some of the stuff that go on in prisons. See, a lot of these dudes get out of prison and they'll brag about the details of the good times. But they ain't gonna tell you about how they cried when they got that time. They ain't gonna tell you about how they were so distraught when they couldn't go to their grandmother's funeral or their mama or their daddy funeral because they was locked up. They ain't gonna tell you about that. They ain't gonna tell you about how all of their friends have moved on. Everybody has evolved. They got families and they have businesses and they're growing. They bought homes and cars and they're vacationing and life is passing them by. And they're sitting there thinking, damn, I messed up. They're not gonna tell you about that. They're not gonna tell you how it hurts them that when their kids are being targeted by someone, that they can't offer them any protection. They're not going to tell you how it digs at their very soul that another man is raising their children. Or, and this is the big one, that their children call another man daddy. Let me explain something to you, fam. There's a lot of dudes who go to prison and come out and brag about prison. Prison ain't nothing to brag about. It's demoralizing to start off. Prison is really designed for animals. Not everybody in jail is an animal. In fact, most people who are in jail are not animals. Most people who are in prison are not predators. Most people who are locked up are not menaces to society. They just happen to find themselves in a bad situation, or perhaps they made a mistake, or perhaps they were scapegoated some type of way, railroaded, right? Everybody that's in prison does not deserve to be in prison. Having said that, I can attest to you that what dude said go on in prison does go on. I remember when I was locked up, there was a guy who you would have never thought was in there flipping. Dude went to see his girlfriend every weekend. His girlfriend would come to the prison twice a week. Twice. Saturdays and Sundays. And he'd just be in there in the visitor room, holding hands and cheesing and all that stuff. And then he'd go back in the lockup and he'd be messing with them boys. Yeah. And he ain't the only one. So, when stuff like that go on, the word do get out if you know him, but typically you try to mind your business, get out of the way. You don't play, and people know who to play with. A lot of times people talk about how, oh, you go to jail, you gonna get this, you gonna get that. Nah, they know who to try and who not. Because it's some dudes, they know if they try, they gonna die. Death come with that, So if you think, pirating somebody's butthole is worth dying, then go out there and die, because that's what's going to happen to you if you try certain dudes. But a lot of these dudes, they tough guys on the streets, tough guys, and then they go in prison, and then they fall into the road willingly. Yeah, it's a lot of them that get violated, but others willingly played the game. And then they come home and then they tell these little stories, right? They tell these booty stories. And they he, and they tell them to the youngsters, a lot of the guys who don't know. Maybe these young guys are in the streets and they ain't been popped yet. So they'll tell them these stories and try to make it seem like jail was cool, right? Well, if jail's so damn cool, why'd you make parole? Why didn't you stay? Dude said he went in initially for 1.5 years and he ended up staying for 3 years because it was so cool. It was like Disneyland. Well, what I want to know is why he didn't stay for 3 more years and then 3 more years. Because jail ain't as cool as they think it is. A lot of dudes try to make it seem like jail was cool so that they can impress somebody, because they ain't got nothing else to talk about. They've been locked up for 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever. They ain't got no stories to tell. Some people just like telling stories, right? Get around the guys, start telling stories. What you been doing for the last year or 2 years, whatever. Well, this is what happened in my life. Man, well, this was going on in prison, man, and woo, 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 woo. And they try to make it seem like it was something good, it was something cool. Now, ain't nothing cool about being bossed around, being put in a cage, telling somebody telling you when you can move and when you need to be still. And the dudes who do that, they're among the worst of the worst. There was a time when I was in the hood and this one dude, big old muscle bound dude, he one of those who is who the youth are impressed by. You ever had those dudes around the hood, they're older dudes, but the young guys really like them, the young guys really like them because they got a young mind, they think like the youngsters, they still caught up in the same things that the youngsters are caught up in. Well, this dude, he comes on the block. He been home he probably had been home for about maybe 3 weeks or so. So he around, standing around in my homeboy driveway. And it's about maybe 5, 6 youngsters standing around. And he telling prison stories. I walk up and I hear him talking, so I listen in for a moment and I see what he's doing and I call him out. I say, man, if you played that game, if you did that, if you watched, and because he was talking about how he watched out, he was a lookout for a dude who was violating another dude. I say, if you did all that, man, I say, you that too. I wanted the youngsters to know that he ain't all they think he is, because the youngsters feared him, you know. I mean, he was a get down type dude. He type of dude that, you know, he quick to squabble, you know, quick to shoot, all that kind of stuff. He was one of those types. But I know it's something mentally off about dudes like that. And I already know they can't handle real pressure. So, yeah, I called him out, fam, and and he ate that. All these dudes who brag about prison, they're the problem. They know how bad prison really is. Instead of them trying to steer the youngsters away from it, they try to guide them to it. And at the same time, they want to call themselves OGs and they want to demand respect. I have no respect for dudes like that. You know, if you know what it is, man, you know you've been through it. You know that ain't nothing to play with. Don't play with it. Don't make the youngsters feel like they got to go out and do something and go to prison before they become a man. Don't make them think that prison is a rite of passage to manhood, because it's not. Prison is corny. And people who look forward to being in prison, people who brag about prison, are equally corny. Clowns. But what say you, fam? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts.